We have talked a lot in this series about faith, about contending in prayer, and about catching God's vision for America. We have not talked much about the importance of purity. Segue Andrew Towe. On March 19th, he gave this word. I had an encounter with the Lord while in prayer one night. He said to me, there is a revival of purity that is being birthed. The old wineskins cannot contain the new wine of revival that I am releasing. I am raising up a new generation that will carry my presence, and they will see the waters part. But only those with clean hands and pure hearts will ascend to my high places. The ones who will cry unto me, I will answer them. The hungry ones shall feast. The thirsty ones shall drink. Now is the time that I will carry my church across the threshold, even as a groom carries his bride through the entryway into new beginnings. The bride of Christ is now entering a new season of the supernatural. Awakening and revival are here. Watch and see the display of my great power. My kingdom is not in word only, but in power. I am choosing a new breed of watchmen who will be the keepers of the gate. They will not permit compromise to pollute this pure move. In the book of Joshua, he commanded the people of Israel, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. He was commanding that the people prepare themselves for a mighty move of God. This is a season that we are in today. God is calling us to prepare for signs and wonders. Joshua 3:13 says, And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon a heap. There is a new generation of priests unto the Lord that will carry his presence, and when the soles of their feet hit the waters, they will part. God is searching for leaders who will live in obedience to him and lead his people through the overflowing waters of impossibility into the promised land. Joshua 3:17 continues, And the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people had passed over to the other side. Take note of how the priests who lived then walked in God's wondrous power. The Lord strongly spoke to me regarding the contrast of the priests of Joshua's day, who walked in consecration and power, and the priests of Eli's day, who walked in sin and were powerless. God has begun a cleansing in the house of God and its governmental leadership. The Spirit of the Lord is saying today, this next move of God will be birthed by those who are walking in purity. I will allow them to steward my presence, and they will indeed be a generation that will see the waters part. Even the soles of their feet will carry the same power that the priests of Joshua's day had upon them when they crossed the Jordan. Get ready for the cleaning of my house and for my wonder-working power to be released upon the earth. On March 21st, Mark Virkler offered yet another word regarding waves or tsunamis. He said, I saw a vision during worship service on the 21st, a vision that just appeared, and it was like a tidal wave of the Spirit, a huge tidal wave, and it was washing across the United States of America, and it was washing from coast to coast, and it was moving very fast, and it was very wide, it was very deep. It covered all 50 states, and it was washing away all wickedness. It was washing away all evil, and it left the nation pure and holy, and it was like the nation was born again, fresh, new, clean, United States of America. My introduction to Mark Virkler came almost 20 years ago, when I was invited to be part of a home group created for the purpose of practicing and learning about prophecy. Around this time, I had a vision of the Da Vinci painting of God extending out his hand to Adam. That image so stained my mind that I spent more than a week thereafter actively searching for that image, until at last I found it. I'd gone to the Fuller Seminary bookstore in Pasadena, California, to get the book that we were going to go through as a group. The book was called Communing with God by, you guessed it, Mark Virkler. Once I pulled the book out, my heart skipped a beat when I saw the cover of the book behind it, titled Dialogue with God, by the same author. On the cover was the image of the vision I had seen a week earlier, the same image I had diligently searched for since. At that moment, I knew it was more than a coincidence. God himself was inviting me to go on a journey with him of learning to hear his voice. That group became a powerful experience of learning about prophecy and having a safe place to practice with others. It also became a place to receive it for myself. In fact, during 2 prayer sessions in April and August 2001, I received the following words. I marvel now as I consider their present application. In April, I was told, "The Lord wants you to know that you have a really important call, and because of that, the enemy is doing all he can to keep you down." Another person said, "The Lord has given you a vision of what lies ahead and God's purposes for the church, and the enemy is trying to block the message." Another word said, "God has called you to be a watchman on the walls." And then I received a really unusual word. "You are like Jonah in the belly of the big fish, but God says, I have placed you there. I have placed you there. I have placed you there." Will this video series be part of God's agent to bring America to repentance? Right now, I'll just be glad to finish the ark. Whether God brings a rain that lifts it a few inches off the grass or lifts it high upon the flood for all the nation to see, that's his choice, not mine. Back to work. The next day, on March 22nd, Sanjna Mahtab, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, offered a word that sounds strikingly similar to the prophecies Johnny Enlow and Kurt Landry gave on the eve of the election. She said, "At midnight on January 1st, 2020, in the Spirit, I clearly felt and heard the sound of the bottom of the ark settling down on the top of a mountain. For a few years up to that point, many of God's people were going through an intense time of transitioning out of the wilderness. At the time when I heard the ark settle down on the top of the mountain, God had me release a word to encourage you, God's people, to be patient with the process, as it took time for the waters to recede after Noah's ark had settled on the top of the mountain. Noah and his family were released in God's perfect timing. They were shut in the boat for a reason. Just like Noah and his family, you and your household were also shut in intentionally by God. It was challenging for you to even figure out what was going on due to the intensity of the various situations and circumstances you were facing. You were shut in, and then the flood, along with the storm, happened. The boat was rocking while you were in the midst of a very important process, though you were shut inside and being protected through it all. Since then, you who have said yes to God have had many breakthroughs. Take a look and see how far you have made it. Great job. It was intense, but it was needed. It was needed to shape you, to form you, to refine and purify you further. Even from 2020 up until now, you went through an even deeper process during the shaking, where the whole earth full of people was shut in for a time. For those of you who responded to God with a yes, this was a time for a deeper refining and purification to further prepare you for what will now head your way. I suppose this strange prophetic reference to Noah's Ark, the third now that we've seen, holds particular inspiration to me now as I trudge through this 40 video marathon season. The projected goal is to get the first video out on July 1st, and then to release one video a day for 40 straight days, akin to Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness, but also akin to the 40 days and 40 nights it says in Genesis 7:4 that God flooded the earth. I've been told by several people that I should shorten it. "Who's going to watch 40 videos?" is a common response. And practically speaking, they're right, but who said anything about practicality? In August 2017, I received a prophecy that I was to, quote, tell the whole story because it was going to be a foundation of hope for many. At the time, I thought it alluded to my own story, but during the last few months, I have started to consider that perhaps God was speaking about something bigger. Notice the word said, tell the whole story. In August 2018, when I started my original What is God's Agenda for America research paper, I asked God why I was doing it, and God brought to mind the Battle of Marathon. I remember that there was a messenger who ran back from the battle to inform the Greeks that they had defeated the Persians. The messenger, who, legend has it, ran so far that he collapsed and died after saving his last breath to share the news, is where we get the name for the 26-mile marathon race. It's kind of how I feel right now. With each passing day, I research and write and edit and record. I feel like I'm going to collapse from exhaustion. Keep in mind, I also have a full-time job I deal with. And yet God told me to tell the whole story. But there was more of the Battle of Marathon word than meets the eye. You see, the victory was truly one of David versus Goliath proportions. One historical account described the Persians as a seemingly invincible army at least twice the size of the Greeks. Furthermore, when the battle ended and statistics were accumulated, the final death count was Persians 6,400, Greeks just 192. The Persians accrued 33 times more deaths than the Greeks, with an army that was twice their size. Can Trump come back after Biden has already taken the White House? Can justice finally be served when voter tampering evidence has been so overlooked so many flippant times? Can a great awakening really sweep over the land and restore America back to its greatest days yet? They can if God said they would. I just need to get to the finish line. 3 days later, a third Indian prophet spoke. This one, a young man by the name of Albert Milton. He said, "The Lord is bringing help from the north, the south, the east, and the west. God is already changing California, New York, Minnesota, and many other northern states. The Lord is changing America for His glory. As you continue to pray, you will see extraordinary things, mighty things, marvelous things. As it says in Daniel 2:21, it is He who changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Today I declare and decree a supernatural transformation in every state to see this move of God, the heart of God, the mind of Christ. There is going to be an amazing revival that is going to break out in every aspect, even the leadership. There's going to be an amazing hosting of the presence. I heard the Lord say, I'm not done with President Trump. The things I have planned and prepared I'm going to manifest in his life. Israel was silent for a time, and then God changed the season, and the Lord established that nation. The Lord is saying, I will never forget what President Trump did for Israel, and I'm going to establish President Trump for my glory. I'm going to bless him. I'm going to do amazing, marvelous things for my glory, and I'm going to bring an amazing breakthrough and sudden turn, and suddenlies will manifest in this country. I also heard the Lord say, I'm going to wake up America. I'm going to wake up the people who are in a dormant state. They expected good, but nothing good happened yet. But the Lord is telling us that the moment when they are awake, I'm going to bring forth an amazing revival, and they will be renewed by my word. God says there is no compromise. I will set apart this nation, America, for my purpose, says the Lord. On March 26, 2021, Nathan French came on the Elijah Streams and also assured us that Trump would be back. Nathan began by telling the story of how he met and prophesied over Donald Trump that he would win big after telling the Lord that he wanted to meet the president for his birthday. First, God told me to go to D.C. in faith, Nathan begins. Then he told me to go downstairs and get breakfast. Then, as I sat at the entrance of the restaurant, a man called out to me and said, Hey, are you meeting someone? I said, No, I'm by myself. And he invited me to join him for breakfast. I wasn't inclined to say yes because I didn't know him, but because I know God and he lives in me and I love him and wanted to do what he says, I heard him say yes. As it turned out, that man was a congressman, and that yes later led to crossing paths with the president, whom Nathan stopped and prophesied over. He says, I've learned that if we want to accelerate the process, we actually have a role to play. But Trump did win big, and God is about to lay it bare. It's not over. I think everything is going to change in April. People are waiting to see. When is the God of justice going to step in? It's going to be really incredible how God finishes what he began. In the spirit realm, when someone cheats, they get disqualified. So even if it looks like they're winning, God is working behind the scenes to set up the outcome to bring justice and recompense. And that for sure is what we're going to see regarding the election. Proverbs 13:22 says, A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the just. So what the Lord showed me was that right now he's releasing impartation for divine inventions, and people are learning to spend time and delight in the presence of God. He is imparting to them blueprints and releasing instructions and revelation and inventions. He's also taking resources from areas that are stagnant, and he's moving into places where he sees people actually working toward the goal. God's going to bring a redistribution of wealth. The Lord showed me there is no shortage of natural resources on the earth, but that the issue is one of distribution. So I said to the Lord, how do we do that? And he said, obedience brings the acceleration, and unlocks supernatural results. There is an angel named Purity, and she writes the checks, and his kingdom resources are unlimited. Have you considered yet how many prophets said that Trump would be back after Joe Biden had already been put in office? It's got to be more than a dozen by now. But why would God do this? Why would he wait until Lazarus was dead, buried, in the grave for, well, closing around 5 months now, or maybe 7 or 8 by the time you hear this? There really is only one logical explanation. He had something spectacular planned from the beginning and devised this accompanying journey to prepare us to take the land that he spoke about from the start. Now, how is this all going to happen? Beats the stuffing out of me. Faith doesn't have an answer for everything. It just trusts and follows the one that does. What is God's agenda for America? That we would trust his ability to lead us more than our own ability to be misled. Next up, video number 28, Elijah prayed for rain.